couple more minutes and then we'll get started.
Hi, Kathy. Hi, Kurt. This is Lisa. I'm making sure everything's working.
Everything is working. Thanks for joining us, Lisa.
Great. Thanks.
We're just giving folks a few minutes more to, because we got the WebEx started just a little bit late. Okay. Well, with that, I imagine we'll still have some more people coming in, but I'd like to open the January 26th meeting of the Oregon Climate Action Commission, our first meeting with that title and with some new commission members that we are welcoming, which we can do a little bit more formally during the roll call. As I've said before, this summer and fall, I really appreciate the trust the legislature has put in the commission and the signal that it has sent through the expansion of our membership and responsibilities, and what that says about the support for climate action that works for Oregon. So just want to say that one more time as we start off in a new era for the commission. We will be onboarding new members over the next several months as the governor's office works on new appointments and the new directors are able to clear their calendars to participate in our meetings. You'll hear more about something we're going to be doing to try and improve our meeting schedule just a little bit later in the agenda. But before we proceed, if you, Amy, who I'd like to also welcome, who is ODO's new Senior Climate Policy Action Analyst, that Alan will provide a little more information on her new position in just a few minutes, but I'd like to invite Amy and or Abby to remind us how to use WebEx, and in particular, if you would also remind the public how we can use, how they can let us know that they want to testify, which we'll be doing fairly early on in the meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Amy or Abby. Amy or Abby, we can't hear you. Or I can't hear you.
Catherine, just FYI, this is Senator Brock Smith. I'm on.
Welcome. Well, we're doing roll call in a few minutes.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know why my computer wasn't muting me. But if you're new to using WebEx, there are a couple of options if you want to provide comments. You can always add it into the chat, and we're going to keep track of that, or you can always raise your hand. Down at the bottom, there's an option. There's like a little face emoji, or next to it, there's like a little hand. And you can just click that little hand, and we'll keep track of who raises their hand. If you are in as an attendee, as the host, I'll need to unmute you, and then Amy will let you know when you're unmuted and able to speak.
Anything else you want to point out about the use of WebEx?
That should be about it. It's a pretty self-explanatory platform. It's pretty easy to use. If you do have any questions, feel free to chat me. You can chat me privately, and I'll help you get something figured out.
Amy, you're just a little garbled, so I don't know if you can adjust your mic at all, but you're just cutting in and out just a little bit for me anyway. But with that, let's go.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
Janine. Hi, I think that was Abby Research speaking.
Oh,
She,
apologies.
She is the person to chat if you have questions or you're interested in making a statement. If you're a member of the public and as an attendee, I think Amy is having some connection problems with her sound. So hopefully Alan can do his part in the agenda and stall as she's trying to figure out how to connect.
I think I have it working. Can everybody hear me now? Great.
Yes.
Sorry about
Great.
that.
Thank you, Director Benner and Amy. Glad you were able to work that out. Well, with that, let's go. If there are no more tips you want to provide to folks on WebEx, then let's go to the next slide and I'll do a quick review of the agenda. We will start with the opening remarks and commissioner updates. Will take roll in a few minutes. Then we will hear from staff at Odo that will be telling us, kind of giving us an update on our work plan and where things stand. From there, we'll open up a public comment period, and we are interested in public comments on any and all topics that we are considering today or not considering today, but that you want to flag for future meetings and consideration by the commission. Next, we'll hear from the governor's office and the implementing agencies on the Natural and Working Lands Fund proposal. And we will be making, hopefully approving that proposal today so that we can move forward on and getting that program, those programs up and running with the new funding that the legislature was so kind to provide during the last session. We'll shift from that to hear an update from DEQ about the climate pollution reduction grant and the priority climate action plan. We also will pass a resolution, hopefully, regarding that. And I can speak a little bit more to the specifics of that, but maybe just to preface that there will be lots of engagement and additional work that the agencies will be doing to refine the proposal, but given the connections to the roadmap that the commission adopted last spring, I think it would be nice for us to endorse the work that's been done to date. So we'll be considering that. Then we'll hear from Erica Fleischman, who's the director of the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute. She will be giving us updates on information that came out as part of the 5th National Climate Assessment and any new information or the focus of COP that happened in this last fall. We'll hear from Christy Splitt from the Department of Energy, a quick legislative update, and then we'll go to next steps. We've got a pretty full agenda and a lot to cover. I wanted to just reference that I did send an email to commission members at about 9:30 this morning with some considerations that we might want to make relative to the resolutions that we'll make. Obviously, we'll be hearing more public, presumably hearing more public input on the resolutions relative to the topics that we are going to be considering resolutions for, but some initial thoughts based on the public comments that we've already received. So with that, I think I can go to roll call. And just as a quick reminder, we do estimate that the public comment will happen around 10:25 today, and please do let us know right away if you want to testify. We will need to consider how many people want to testify and what that means about the length of testimony that we can hear. And depending on how many people want to testify, we might ask folks to confine themselves to either 1 minute or 3 minutes if we have fewer people. So with that, I will go through the roll call and start with Commissioner Apter.
Good morning.
Welcome. Commissioner Ford.
I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Ross.
I'm here. Good morning.
Commissioner Shippentauer. Commissioner Shippentauer. I think I see you, but maybe we just can't hear you. So we can, if you need help with your microphone, and let Amy know, or let Abby know. We'll just come back to you. Commissioner Reitman.
Yes, I'm here.
Going back to our list, Representative Helm.
Yes, here. Good morning, everybody.
Welcome. And Senator Brock Smith, just you identified yourself earlier. We'll do it more officially now.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm here.
Good morning.
Chair McDonald, Kristen Sharon is here as well.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Sharon. Apologies. I'm looking to see if Senator Dembro is with us yet. Doesn't look like it. And I heard before the meeting from Representative Levy that she sent her regrets and is not able to join us, but was double booked during this meeting. Next I'll go to the agency directors. Director Benner.
Morning.
Director, and I apologize, I don't know that I've said your last name before. Sharpillos Hansen?
Good morning, Lisa Sharpelo Hansen. Very close, Kathy.
Sharpelo. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to go back to my view and see who else. We have a number of staff that are representing. Oh, excuse me. We have a number of staff that are representing some of our some of our directors that are on, but I'll go ahead and call out the directors. Director Melcher.
Here.
Director Woodcock.
Here. Thank you.
And I want to also just recognize that there are a number of staff that are representing other agencies that are part of the commission. Did I miss any directors?
Happy
Bell
director.
for housing is present.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Director Bell for Oregon Housing and Community Services present.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Bell. I'm looking forward to meeting the new directors that are on the commission and getting more familiar with staff that may be attending as well. So look to that in the future.
And also Director Stolfi from the Department of Consumer and Business Services. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. It's great to have you on board.
And Tom Potowski, good morning.
Good morning, Tom. Commissioner Potowski, welcome.
Hi, I'm Megan Decker. I'm the chair of the Oregon Public Utility Commission, and I was just having trouble with the WebEx, so I'm on now.
Great. Welcome, Commissioner Decker. It's a little more challenging to have as many people as we have, but it's very welcome that we do have as many people as we have on the commission. And so bear with me as we figure out how to best manage roll call in this circumstance. And again, thank you to the other staff that are joining us today, representing directors that were not able to get this on their calendar. So I believe that's the end of roll call. Anybody else that I missed that's a director, legislator, or voting member? Great. Thank you.
Can you hear me? This is Cheryl Schippentower.
Excellent. We can hear you now, Cheryl. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, with that, I think we can go to the next slide and I'll turn things over to Alan to kick us off on, excuse me. Do any commissioners want to provide any other updates before we go into our regular business? And if you do, please raise your hand. It's a little hard to see when people raise their hand on WebEx. So if we miss you, go ahead and yourself and jump in. It looks like Director Benner.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Not an update. I just wanted to extend a warm welcome to all of the new director members of the the Oregon Climate Action Commission. We're really excited to expand it and bring your perspectives and expertise to this conversation. And I think you'll find that it's a commission full of really engaged and dedicated folks to helping the state meet our climate goals. And really glad you're here, and thanks for making the time.
Thank you, Director Benner. Gabriella?
Good morning, everybody. Gabriella Goldfarb, Environmental Public Health Manager at the Oregon Health Authority, and here on behalf of OHA today, but we have a brand new director who started last week and wasn't able to get her briefed and ready to participate today, but we'll be circling up back and doing that. And then as an update, wanted to let folks know that the inaugural request for grant applications for the Healthy Homes Grant Program should be released within about a week. And this is an important pathway for resourcing organizations that will do both very important climate work, but equally environmental justice and equity and health work. So very excited to share that, and I'll put a link just to our web page in the chat, and we'll put an announcement out once the request for grant applications is available.
Thank you, Gabriella. That's exciting to hear.
Yeah.
Any other updates or announcements? Okay. Well, with that, let's go to our next agenda item. And Alan.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. I would like to introduce an Amy Schluscher. She's many of you know that Zach Baker left Odo, and Amy is our new climate lead at Odo. Odo is getting about 24 new positions from the legislature in the last long session. In planning and innovation, where Amy and I sit, there's 15. That includes the 4 new climate action and natural working lands positions. So Amy's not new to Odo. She's actually been with us for a while. She's been the clean energy or renewable energy policy analyst lead in that area. So she's shifting over her duties. With all the workload and all the exciting things that are happening finally in the climate change arena, we really felt like in planning and innovation, we needed a new section just dedicated to climate action and natural working land. So we have a new climate section, which has 5 people in it. And Amy is leading that up as the lead. And it has the other, Amy's position is actually one of the climate action leads. She'll be replacing Zach's position. We'll be replacing Zach's position fairly short order. So it'll go out or an opening. So if you know any good people in that who want to take on working on climate change, stay tuned. Probably put that out in a week or two, probably next week. And then we also have the other climate action position, which is a technical position helping us track all of this stuff. And then we also have the 2 natural and working lands position, 1 policy position and 1 technical position, which we're working on processing those position descriptions so we can get them out the door too. So keep your eyes tuned towards those positions. If you know any great people that you think should apply, please let them know that that's coming, and keep an eye out on our webpage. Amy will be working with me to lead that group of people working on all of this climate change stuff. As part of that work, part of the fixes that we're needing to do in the legislature this short session in SB 1525 is the pushing out of the natural and working lands deadlines for the inventory and the studies. So we're put those into they're in legislation, so we have to put them in a legislative fix-it bill. And Christy Split, when she does her upcoming legislative update, can answer any questions about that and touched on that a little bit more when we get to that part of the meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amy, and Amy can talk about board recruitment and new members and getting on a regular meeting schedule. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. And hi, everybody. It's nice to see all of you and meet those of you that I haven't met before. So recruiting new commissioners for appointment by the governor is one of our top priorities. And just as a reminder to everyone on the commission, we have a few vacancies right now. We have 5 voting member seats that are vacant, an environmental justice seat, a youth seat, a fishing industry seat, a manufacturing seat, and then 1 at-large voting member seat. And then we have 3 non-voting at-large member seats that are currently vacant. And these seats are open to state agency staff or staff of academic institutions. So we are currently finalizing a process with the governor's office for recruiting these new members. And so stay tuned for more updates on that. We also recently sent out welcome letters to the new agency director members, and we'll be scheduling new member orientations with any interested new commissioners. And then finally, we are working to put together a regular commission meeting schedule for 2024. The intent is to convene monthly, with the exception of some busy times like during short session. And we'd like to establish that schedule as soon as possible so that everyone can get these meeting dates on their calendars. But before we can do that, we are currently reviewing the meeting schedules of member agency boards and commissions in an effort to avoid conflicts with those meetings wherever possible. And so we will be reaching out to all commissioners with some proposed dates in the near future. So keep an eye out for some communications related to scheduling. And now I think I will pass it over to Kathy unless anyone has any questions.
Amy, it would be great if you or Abby could maybe drop the link into the chat as to where people can go if they want to apply to be considered as a member of the commission.
Sure. I will.
And you know, feel free to take a little time because to do that if it's not easily at hand.
Yes, I will have to ask Abby to do that. I don't actually have access to the chat right now because I'm sharing my screen, but we will take care of that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just want to make sure that people know what that process looks like or where to go to find out about the process. Thank you. Yeah, next agenda item, which is our public comment. And I will rely on Abby to help us identify how many people want to provide comment.
We have had one in the chat say that they want to provide comment.
Okay.
Anyone
Can you
else
just
does-
do it? Sorry, go ahead.
So if anyone else does, feel free to put that in the chat or to raise your hand right now, so we can make sure we get you on the list.
Great. Thanks, Abby. So I think the first person is Megan Kemple. Welcome, Megan. Abby, have you been able to unmute Megan?
Okay, you should be unmuted.
There we go. Hello.
Welcome, Megan. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Chair McDonald and commissioners. I'm Megan Kemple, Executive Director with the Oregon Climate and Agriculture Network, or ORCAN for short. I'd like to provide feedback on the Natural Working Lands Fund proposal. ORCAN was a strong advocate for the Natural Climate Solutions Bill, along with the farmers and ranchers in our network. Over 50 farms and ranches endorsed the bill. Farmers and ranchers testified at public hearings on the bill in person, virtually, and with written testimony. They also met with their legislators. They expressed their interest in adopting natural climate solutions and the need for financial support. Engagement from Oregon's farmers and ranchers was critical and helped garner the legislative support needed to pass the bill. They're invested in the effectiveness of the $10 million Natural and Working Lands Fund, and so are we. The purpose of the fund is to establish and implement programs to provide incentives to help landowners, land managers, Indian tribes, and environmental justice communities adopt practices that support natural climate solutions and financial assistance for technical support for these same communities. ORCAN, the farmers we work with who review the proposal, are concerned the proposal doesn't include adequate funding for financial incentives for farmers and ranchers. There's a small portion of the proposed use of the funds by OWEB for the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program for payment for conservation practices on agricultural land. And there's some funding in ODA's proposed native seed strategy for financial assistance, including tribal farmers. Overall, we see at most $800,000 of the $10 million proposed, less than 10%, for financial incentives provided by the state for farmers and ranchers to adopt natural climate solutions. We recommend allocating more funding to, or explicitly providing flexibility for, OWEB to allocate more funding to the Oregon Ag Heritage Program. To clarify that, recommend allocating more funding to the Oregon Ag Heritage Program or explicitly providing flexibility for OWEB to allocate more funding to that program. For payment for conservation practices on agricultural land, OEHP is the best fit of any existing state agency program for providing payment for practice for farmers and ranchers. Another concern, OWEB's project purpose in their spend plan summary has a reference to conservation easements and covenants. We don't support the use of the Natural Working Lands Fund for this purpose. Although we value farmland preservation through easements and covenants, that program wouldn't provide payment for practice, and the use of the fund on easements could easily use up the entire $750,000 with just one or two projects. I think it's unlikely that farmers and ranchers will advocate for the renewal of this funding if their needs aren't met or addressed by it. We respectfully request that more funding be allocated to financial incentives for ag practices through OAHP. If it's not feasible to allocate additional funding to OAHP at this point in the process, we request the Commission provide OWEB with the flexibility to reallocate funding to that program depending on demand and agency capacity. And we recommend excluding conservation easements and covenants from OWEB's use of the fund, providing funding for the other proposed uses. Thank you so much for your consideration of these comments.
Thank you, Megan. I wanted to also just mention that we did get significant comments in written form by the January 17th deadline, and those were distributed to the commission, and there was a lot of good information to inform the commission's decision, and as well as to inform the agency's implementation once the allocations are made. So I want to appreciate the really good support we got through public comments in how this program moves forward. Abby, are there any others that want to testify?
I have not seen any other hands or anything in the chat for public comment.
Great. And just for any others that might be joining us today, we did post all of the written public comments, so feel free to take a look at those at your leisure or later on in the meeting if you'd like. And with that, we'll close the public comment period during this meeting and move into the discussion of the natural and working lands fund proposal. And I want to welcome Debbie Colbert and her colleagues to join us now and give us a bit of an update on the adjustments that were made to the funding proposal and how the agencies took in the comments that the commissioners had in December about how to make investments and what was developed and posted early in January. We really appreciate all of the good and quick work the governor's office and agencies put into finalizing the program and for taking the commissioner's comments in consideration, and as well as the public comments, as we will hear a bit about their more about their proposal today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Debbie Colbert, who can kick off our presentation.
Good morning. Just doing a sound check. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Really excited to be here with the commission today. Maybe if it's okay with you, Chair McDonald, I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to the folks from the agencies, and that also will serve as a little bit of a sound check because we'll be tag teaming this.
That sounds great.
I'm Debbie Colbert, and today I'm representing the Governor's Natural Resource Office, who has been working very closely with the 4 eligible agencies to bring you the package that you're considering today. I'd like to go next to the staff from ODFW to introduce themselves. So Sarah, can you introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Good morning, Chair McDonald, members of the commission. I'm Sarah Reif. I'm the Habitat Division Administrator with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Thank you, Sarah. How about let's hear from Department of Ag. Troy?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Chair McDonald, members of the commission. Troy Abercrombie, Program Manager for ODA's Noxious Weed Control Program and Native Plant Conservation Program.
Thank you, Troy. Let's go next to folks from OWEB. Jesse and Taylor.
Good morning, Chair McDonald and Commissioners. I'm Jesse Kirshner. I'm the Climate Coordinator at OWEB.
And good morning. My name is Taylor Larson, and I coordinate the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program at OWEB.
And last, let's hear from Department of Forestry. Danny.
Good morning. I'm Danny Norlander. I'm the Forest, Climate, Carbon, and Health Analyst at the Oregon Department of Forestry.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you all for all the great work that you've done as part of getting ready for this meeting today.
So we just had a couple slides, as you mentioned, to kind of tell the story about, the final proposal and how we've been trying to be responsive to what we've heard from commissioners, and then also some further conversations that we've had with partners about the proposal. And we're happy at any point to just answer questions from commissioners, so please feel free to interrupt. You have the full proposal in your packet, which provides the details around each of the 13 areas of investment. We've really tried to be ambitious with what we've brought forward to you. We've put a premium on telling you, providing you with a cohesive, coordinated proposal across the 4 agencies. And we've also tried to continue to gut check what we're proposing against the statute. Again, specifically, the statute asks the agencies to coordinate, work together, seek opportunities, not be duplicating efforts. We try to really propose things based on existing programs, very much focused on leveraging federal funds where we could, and throughout, trying to make sure that we were building a proposal that supported environmental justice communities, tribes, landowners, and land managers. Next slide, please. Again, you have the full proposal. Just share this table just as a reminder of the overarching spend plan across the 4 agencies. Again, we really tried to front load the spending in the first 2 years of this biennium, although technically we can spend out the funds over a longer period. I think we share the goal of many of the commissioners of really trying to get these dollars out the door, on the ground, and demonstrating results. And so that's why we have front loaded majority of the spend in these first 2 years of the fiscal period. But recognizing that we're doing something new with all of you. And, when you're doing something for the first time, it doesn't always go exactly to plan. And so this is our spend plan. And we are absolutely committed to coming back and talking to the commission about how's it going? Have there been surprises? Have there been things that have slowed us down unexpectedly? How does the commission want us to adapt if things don't go according to plan? So just wanted to kind of highlight that we think we've kind of threaded the needle in terms of being ambitious, but as realistic as possible. Next slide,
Abby,
please.
can I just ask a quick question? As I recall, most of the out-year funding was on the invasive species work, and part of the rationale for that is just making sure that those are successful treatments requires some continued investment. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair McDonald. The out years are largely about maintenance and ensuring success of projects.
Great. Thank you.
So let's go to the next slide. As you look across the 4 agency proposals, and especially if you look in Table 1, we really tried to be transparent with all of you and our stakeholders about kind of how we saw the benefits of these 13 investment areas translating into the natural and working lands. And we've tried to be very diverse in terms of the package, and we think that we've distributed funds pretty well over the natural and working lands. Again, we have tried to focus on some immediate actions that we felt could sequester and store carbon, but we also put some things in there that we feel like are forward-looking in terms of needs and solutions. We also tried to fund a combination of on-the-ground projects, technical assistance, incentives. And while the statute wanted us to really kind of focus on existing programs, and we have tried to do that, we also want to give you assurance that this is not business as usual from our perspective. This is really an opportunity that the agencies are seizing to look at how they're doing that work and where there are gaps and where we could be doing more to advance the pace and the extent of our carbon sequestration and natural climate solutions. Next slide. And again, just kind of reinforcing this point, if you look across the spend, 11 out of the 13 areas have direct connection to environmental justice and tribal communities. 11 out of the 13 investment areas would accrue some benefit to natural lands. 8 out of 13 have direct or indirect benefits to ag and rangelands. 8 out of 13 direct or indirect benefits to forest lands. And then 12 out of 13 either already or are anticipated to leverage federal funds. Next slide, please. We really wanted to be as responsive as possible to some of what we heard from you in the December preview that we gave you of the proposal. And then after meeting with you in December, we actually had a number of either group meetings with some of our partners or one-on-one conversations with partners to try to understand any concerns and be responsive. And I wanted to highlight just a couple things that we did in response. Hopefully you noticed that for all of the agencies, we tried to build out more information about how we will track the impact of the funding in metrics that can be readily converted once the commission completes its work in terms of its methodologies for carbon sequestration estimates. I will also maybe hand it off to either Jesse or Taylor to talk about the 2 OWEB adjustments that we made in response to what we heard.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. I'll start and then I'll pass it over to Taylor. So one of the pieces that we added to the proposal was that prior to any solicitation release, OWEB plans to conduct a public engagement process with environmental justice communities, tribes, and others to get input on priorities. So if the priorities are more aimed towards technical assistance or if they're more aimed towards financial, on-the-ground projects or incentives, whatever it might be, we want to do that engagement before we have any solicitation go out so we get that information and it will help inform our review of grant proposals. I'll turn it to Taylor to talk about OAHP.
Yeah, and thanks, Jesse. On the OAHP side of things, we did go ahead and remove conservation easements and covenants as a eligible practice. It did sneak into the proposal that got submitted, but we are planning on spending the funds if they come to OWEB to develop and implement conservation management plans and do the technical assistance associated with getting those climate smart practices on the ground. That's what I got.
Great.
Taylor, that could include payment for practices in addition to the technical assistance. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's just important to note that the way the Ag Heritage Program is set up is producers need a conservation management plan in place to then get paid for practices that they implement through that plan.
Great. Thank you for the clarification.
Yep.
Next slide, please. Wanted to just kind of finish with just a few reflections and just kind of underscore that we started this process, I think, with a lot of expectations. Many of us were a part of the legislative discussions about what this fund would be used for. I think we're all really committed to its success. And I mean, the agencies as much as anyone. But we recognize that we have a lot of expectations, and it has been a little bit of a balancing act. Some interest you hear kind of like, how do we get money directly to landowners and land managers? Others really kind of wanting us to lean on our local place-based organizations, SWCDs, watershed councils. Some interest in, hey, can we start now understanding what kind of carbon sequestration is occurring with these funds versus waiting until we have more direct kind of instructions from the commission. Some of the comments asking us to be a little bit more prescriptive in terms of requiring soil carbon baselines as an example when we're working with producers versus others really like wanting us to be as flexible with these dollars as possible. You know, again, you know, some folks saying, hey, you really got to, you know, just lean on your existing programs according to the statutory direction. But we've also heard folks that wish that we had put money in some other existing programs that maybe didn't have quite the direct link to carbon goals. Next slide. You know, if you continue to kind of like read through some of the comments, you see the full spectrum, more technical assistance, less technical assistance, kind of technical assistance versus direct incentives and payments for practices, more focus on one type of land versus the others, maxing federal dollars, you know, you know, so I think that there are a lot of kind of tweaks that we can make. We hope that the commission sees that we've tried to thread the needle and be as responsible as possible, give you something that we really stand behind in terms of what we think is doable, still ambitious though, and recognize that some of the things that you're hearing about will actually come down to implementation. And, you know, this is not kind of a one-stop opportunity to engage with our partners. As you heard from OWEB, you know, they are going to go through an extensive process to really gather more input about kind of how they put those dollars on the ground, how they prioritize, how they engage. And so just kind of put on your radar that, you know, some of the comments that you're seeing are actually going to be at the implementation phase. And the way that we've given you the proposal, it really keeps as many tools in the toolbox so that we can be responsive to what we hear when we get to that implementation phase, and based on what we get from folks when they come forward with ideas and requests. So last slide. And then we are happy to answer any questions. I'll just finish by saying, you know, when we look at the statute and it emphasizes for the commission, you know, what factors you all might think about as you determine these allocations. One of those factors in the statute is the ability of the agencies to carry out the programs. And the second is the amount of federal funds and other funds that can be secured. We hope that as a commission, you feel like we have brought you something forward that you can have confidence that we can deliver on, and that we've done as much as we can to either leverage current federal funding or what we anticipate will be coming in the future. So with that, I'll just finish by thanking the chair and the commissioners for working so closely with all of us. Again, we are trying something new here. It is ambitious. We're hoping once the commission makes its decision today that the agencies will be in a position to move forward quickly with our CFO and LFO to bring forward technical adjustments for the agency budgets in the short session that starts on Monday, I think. Yes, Monday. In which case, if we can get those technical adjustments done, we should be able to get rolling as soon as possible. So happy to answer any questions, and you have all of the agencies here to answer specific questions on the proposal as well.
Debbie, thank you. That was a great summary of the process you went through and the way you thought about this. And I assume I'm speaking for the whole commission that we really appreciate the work that's been done by the governor's office and the agencies, and the responsiveness you've been not only to the commissioner comments in December, but to the public comments that came in by the 17th of January, and as well as anticipating the comment that was shared with us this morning. So really, really appreciate that. And with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions of Debbie and the agency staff that are here with us today. And if I don't see your hand up, please go ahead and, oh, we got Commissioner Fort. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair McDonald, and thank you, Debbie, for the really good presentation. I just have a couple of quick comments and maybe a question for Oregon Department of Forestry specifically. When I was going through the recommendations, I noted that wildfire was mentioned 23 times in the report. Interestingly enough, it wasn't mentioned once in the ODF section, which I just want to note. Not that ODF doesn't care about wildfire. I think they do have a focus, and I know there are activities and investments that are being discussed outside of this $10 million to address wildfire. It's a big issue in the state. The reason it's such a big issue is because wildfire activity that occurs here in the state has a very negative impact on carbon, on at least trying to achieve our removal and storage goals as a state. And I'll just note that if you haven't seen it, there's a report that was released in 2022 in California called Up in Smoke. It was by Jarrett et al. It was a study that was done that takes a look at what the impact of wildfire in California specifically has had. And I think we've seen this as well in Oregon in the 2020 fires in particular, where in California in 2020, those fires released 2 times higher amounts of greenhouse gas emissions than the reductions were over a period from 2003 to 2019. So I don't know whether we've done here in Oregon a thorough review of the kind of releases that are occurring through wildfires here in the state, like California has done. But my concern is that we can make a lot of great investments here, and it can all be removed quickly through wildfire activity. And so I just want to raise that as a point. My question for ODF is, and I appreciate the comments, Debbie, about your focus on looking at existing programs and also trying some new things. But I'm just kind of curious, looking at the ODF portion of this proposal, it's not clear to me what percentage of funds are going to be distributed or utilized in existing programs versus new programs. And I was wondering if Danny maybe could give me some insight into how much of the funding is going through existing programs. I only see like maybe 3 FTEs total request, which doesn't seem like a lot to me. And so does that have some relationship to how much money is going to go to existing programs versus going outside the agency to other agencies? So hopefully you understood my question, Danny, and happy to hear your comments.
Thank you for the question, Chairman Donald and Commissioner Ford. In the proposal, we have $750,000 that goes to the seed orchard, and that's one of those very far-looking ones, providing seed down the road for climate-adapted species that we don't currently gather seed for or aren't part of the mix in a large proportion, but we may need down the road. And beyond that, so that's 2 FTEs are going to that, to really work on that side of things. The other FTE is really to manage and work on implementing, getting money out to local organizations, so that's SWCDs and watershed councils and others that can really focus on place-based implementation of these funds. And it hopefully is linked up with the climate change and carbon plan that the department developed and was approved by the board 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago. So that's really where we're hoping to leverage efforts.
Danny, would you characterize those 2 areas of investments as existing programs?
Well, the seed orchard definitely is, and then beyond that, we're trying to build more relationships with tribes and underserved communities, especially We have a new tribal liaison that's been around for about a year, and she's working with me on that to make sure that we can get funds to tribes to do climate smart forestry practices on their lands. And then working with others inside the agency and outside the agency to get funds out. So we're really trying to get the funds out to people on the ground doing stuff locally as opposed to more centralized. And then, we do have about 13 other granting programs, but none of them are geared towards climate action. And none of the metrics that they collect are related to climate. We're looking at things from bark beetles, which are related to climate, but it's not geared towards climate, and wildfire risk reduction, so on and so forth. So those other ones, they didn't really align with where we were hoping to go with climate action funds. So that's why we're going a little bit of a different way, but using existing staff and existing programs and existing relationships throughout that whole process.
So what I'm hearing is that maybe all of the investments are existing programs. Maybe some are a little newer than others in terms of the type of outreach. Is that a fair characterization?
I think that it is using the funds to strengthen efforts that are ongoing and have been ongoing, but aren't necessarily classified as a specific granting program that has been.
I see what you're saying. Any follow-up on that, Commissioner?
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, but and I realize there are limited dollars here, but to your point, looking within your existing programs, and I think you identified, insect and disease, for example, and even wildfire, those all are part of the climate challenge, right? Wildfire in particular, and I would say things that lead to conditions where wildfire will be challenging to manage through insect and disease programs, for example. So being able to get a handle on investments in those programs that will help reduce that risk overall seems like an appropriate place to spend some time and energy. And so when you were working within the agency, do any of the folks that run those programs see an opportunity to be able to, maybe not even necessarily with these dollars, but just looking a little bit broader, to maybe realign those programs slightly to be recognized that those outputs or those actions have an impact on climate in particular? I'm just kind of curious, because it sounds like you looked at some of the existing internal programs and you didn't see a very good fit. And so my question is, well, then how do you go back to those departments or to those programs and say, how do we realign these programs so there is a better fit? I guess is my question.
Chair McDonald, Commissioner Ford, if I could
absolutely
pop in. I think, and again, there are folks on this call that know much more about the broad portfolio of work that this commission has in front of us. So outside of this 10 million, I do think that this bill will tee up a conversation with agencies that's broader, that takes a look at all of the programs that we're implementing and how it is consistent with our goals around natural climate solutions, around carbon sequestration. So I think that this bill provides for that bigger look by the agencies. And I think that will be the source of future conversations. And I think we even have some reporting requirements with the commission that's broader than just these funds, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, that is correct. The activity-based metrics would not be confined to the investment pool, but we'd be looking more broadly at that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I agree with that, Debbie. I do think it is a broader conversation, recognizing we have a limited number of dollars. And so how do we deploy those appropriately? It does make sense to me. I am interested in that bigger picture discussion about various agency programs, but particularly within Oregon Department of Forestry, and how does this all fit together because I think there is a linkage here. So between pests and insects, for example, or other activities that we're doing and how that all links together.
Thank
Can
you,
I just
Commissioner Ford. Go ahead.
have
Danny.
one final thought there that hopefully will answer some of that is, this was for this initial round of funding that was provided by the legislature. Hopefully we will get further funds down the road. And I don't want to, there's nothing that won't be on the table in the future. So if we're successful here, or if we need other funding in other places down the road, that will definitely be in the conversation and part of what we're thinking of in the future. Part of the reason that we focused on these activities and implementation in the way that we're doing it is because of the IIJA and the infrastructure, or the Inflation Reduction Act, many acronyms, which have provided a lot of funding to those other efforts. So if you think of like urban forestry, you don't see urban forestry in here either, but 3409 also provided $6.5 million for urban forestry work, and the department has about $23 million that it's gotten from the federal government for urban forestry work. And then wildfire is likewise pretty well funded at the moment. So we wanted to kind of look at what else is there, what other programs and what other activities can we focus on at the moment, while those other ones are well funded at this time. And then lastly, to kind of get to the point of how do we incorporate climate change into the rest of our programs, I think that OWEB definitely has a good kind of template for us there. And there's constantly an effort to do continuous improvement internally. And we would definitely look at some of those options for including climate change in our other programs and in our other granting opportunities.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kathy, for letting me. I know others probably have some things to say. So my last quick final comment is, Danny, thanks for the response. And yeah, it's incorporating, but it's also thinking about metrics, right? So the metrics outcome of these various programs and what their impact is on climate, right? So to me, it's not necessarily evolving the program, but it's thinking about how do we measure the impact of those programmatic activities in a way that captures what's the climate benefit associated with them. And I think that's the thinking that I think would be helpful as we go forward. Thank you, Chair McDonald, for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. Commissioner Apter?
Yeah, thank you. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to echo what you shared at the outset, Kathy, and just really express gratitude for Debbie and all of our Natural Resource Agency partners for their work in developing this proposal. As Debbie noted, this is an entirely new effort. It's very, very exciting and also a huge body of work. So I just really appreciate the balancing act of working to get the details right and reflect legislative intent and be responsive to commissioner and stakeholder input and translate these dollars into meaningful benefits as quickly as possible. So just thank you so much for all of the work. I think it is just nice to reflect on how long coming this fund is. It's a, huge legislative effort, just so much support from, individual landowners and managers and many other stakeholders from across the state who I think, were enthusiastic about the Natural Climate Solutions Bill overall, but especially about the fund and what it will mean for them in terms of being able to implement natural climate solutions on their lands. So just so exciting to see this come together. And again, really appreciate all of the work to balance the many different goals here. I did want to uplift the comments we heard earlier from Megan Kemple with ORCAN, which I think did a great job of summarizing much of the written feedback that we received ahead of the deadline for comments that encouraged added flexibility to enable additional financial incentives for agricultural practices. I I think this is something we'll be considering in a motion after we conclude the discussion portion, but just wanted to appreciate Megan's comments and lift up that written feedback as well. And then finally, I just want to emphasize or appreciate what Debbie said around the importance of implementation for all of this. And I know there are reporting requirements for the agencies to come back to the commission, but I also hope that you will lean on commissioners for any sort of implementation support and needs. I think we're all very committed to the success of this fund. And so making sure that we are, spreading the word about opportunities, helping to communicate around, success stories of the fund. Just hope that you will think of us not just as a body to report to, but also a partner in ensuring the continued success here. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Apter. Are there any other clarifying questions or comments that commissioners would like to make?
Catherine, this is Senator Brock Smith.
Yes, Senator. Welcome.
Thank you. There's a little history here. And when it goes to the carbon conversation released from wildfire, that was earlier. And Danny, the question will be for you. Do we have, so Senator Roblin and I drafted legislation, I can't remember if it was 18 or 19, to look at the, I think, as many of you know, we started down this path that we're here today. Then we drafted legislation that would look at the natural and working lands carbon sequestration benefits. And even though the bill didn't move forward, ODF partnered with USFS and did do the study. And it, not only for the carbon sequestration benefits from within our forests in Oregon, which is just shy of 31 million metric tons sequestered annually, and the but also the wood products industry and its sequestration benefits. And it's very, very complicated, but roughly 8 million, if I remember correctly, metric tons. So just in the forest and then the timber industry and processing is nearly 40 million or 39 million metric tons of sequestration. So Danny, my question is, do we have any data of the sequestered carbon released in, let's say, the Labor Day fires? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brock Smith. Danny?
I appreciate that question very much. That's ongoing work, and a lot of it relies on the U.S. Forest Service FIA programs, the Forest Inventory and Analysis, and they have plots scattered all over the country, and we were actually able to go and provide funds for them to go and look at FIA plots specifically within the 2020 fire footprints on the west side. So that research is continuing, and hopefully soon we will have some of the specific answers to your questions there. We don't have it right at the moment because that data analysis is still going on, and the Forest Service, like us, have been kind of strapped for capacity. So getting all of the numbers crunched and everything is taking time, and getting the manuscripts written and everything. And then in reference to the Forest Ecosystem Carbon Report that you mentioned, we are in the process of getting that updated as well with a full 10-year comparison from the first period to the second period. So that'll come out in the next maybe year or two. But at the moment, we don't have the capacity or funding to update the harvested wood products or the sawmill energy report that were kind of the follow-ons to that. So
thank
hope
you.
That answers your question. We're working on those numbers.
Thank you. And can you make sure that you loop me in when you get that data?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
And Danny, the two reports that you referenced, one was produced in 2018. Did the wood products one come out in 2019? Is that?
I think 2020.
2020. Maybe?
I'd have to go look.
Okay, well, they're relatively recent. Obviously, we're hoping through the inventory investment that has been made for us to be able to carry out that work and the activity-based metrics work, that we will be able to refresh studies like that on a regular basis. So that's our goal. The inventory methods that are still in discussion with the agencies, but were proposed as part of the process for over the last year that the Institute for Natural Resources and our advisory committee and other technical experts put together is considering methodologies or considered methodologies, and it has an assumption that the inventory will be done in keeping with the methods that IPCC recommends and the EPA uses, which does include both forest ecosystem carbon and wood products, carbon stored in wood products. So those are considered. There's also consideration of smoke. So all of that is kind of at least currently built in to the draft ideas that have been put together to drive the inventory that we'll be doing more on a regular basis going forward. Thank you, Senator.
Chairman,
Any other?
This is Kent Helm.
Great.
I could add a couple comments.
Representative Kelm, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to do the same as Commissioner Apter and express gratitude. It is very fulfilling to see money about to hit the ground for natural and working lands. It indeed has been a long time that we've been talking about this, and I recall I first met Commissioner Ford at a conference 6-7 years ago about carbon sequestration with our working lands, and I know that Senator Brock Smith and Senator Dembro and I have, I think, always agreed that this is a good piece of work for the state to undertake. It's a triple bottom line win for everyone. But I too would like to amplify the comments of Megan Kemple, and for a slightly different reason that may reach beyond what we're immediately doing here. And that is, remember that the prototype for the legislation that you're now working out how to fund and implement failed the first time through. And it failed in past legislative sessions because agriculture wasn't convinced, they weren't on board. I think that they are just barely on board now. And so that makes it ever more important that we show them that they are a valued partner, that they have a piece. And that fits into a larger piece of work that I think both the legislature and the executive branch need to do, which is to show agriculture that it is valued as part of our economy, and that we value farmers. I think, I don't know when it happened, but a while ago, the tide turned against that notion that all parties and all parts of government valued and agriculture and wanted to support it. So this is a chance. This is one of many, but it's an important chance to help agriculture understand its proper place in the state and its value. And I hope the commission will take that into account as we formulate and nurture this plan along into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Helm. Really good points that are important for us to consider. A final call for questions and comments, and if not, we'll go into go ahead and start to discuss approval of a motion to related to the Natural and Working Lands Fund investments. I just, and what I heard and saw in the public comments and heard today in public comments, heard from the agencies and other commissioners, there was definitely an interest in having more funding go to agricultural practice adoption. And so that, I think, is an important thing for the voting members of the commission to consider as we develop a motion. In addition, we heard from the Department of, Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board that they did eliminate the use of the Ag Heritage Program for covenants and easements. I think there was one part that was taken out of and another part where it was included. So we might want to speak to that directly. And then I think, in keeping with the responsibilities given to the commission and the intent of the governor's office and the agencies to work in partnership with the commission, I think we want to make sure that that we are having an ongoing dialogue and partnership, including regular report backs and requests for approval of any significant changes in the spending plan. We do not want to micromanage the agencies, I don't think, but we certainly want to be aware, and if there are significant changes in the spending plan, would want to know the rationale and potentially consider it again as appropriate at the commission level. So those were the things that I heard in the public comments and some of the discussions that we just had. Relative to the public comments, I just want to thank those that provided comments today and earlier on the Natural and Working Lands proposal. In addition to influencing our decision today, and I think, as has been recognized, the information is really valuable to the agencies as the agencies implement the spending plan that we approve, and as also to the commission and the agencies for how we think about continuous improvement in the fund spending and investing the funds that we receive from the legislature in natural and working lands actions. Those are the things that I heard. I open the floor to anyone that wants to make a motion. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Schippentower.
I just had a comment. I just wanted to emphasize, I appreciate all the effort that went into this proposal, but also wanted to make sure that there's early outreach, not only to tribes, but landowners, land managers, so that they can incorporate these natural solutions into their projects. There's a lot of work behind the scenes before it gets implemented. And so I think a lot of outreach needs to be done up front so that we can get these implemented. And so I just appreciate all the work that went into it. And I just hope that that outreach gets out there so we can get these implemented on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schippentower. It's a really important point. These projects are not, and investments are not hatched in a couple of days or months. To be effective, they really need some good forethought, and it's critical that the folks that manage the land have time to kind of think about not only how it can benefit their operation, but benefit the state of Oregon from a mitigation standpoint and a resilience standpoint. So thank you. Commissioner Ford?
Well, if you're looking for a motion, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Great, thank you.
So, the motion would go as follows. The Oregon Climate Action Commission approves the proposed investment plan as outlined in the 2024 Joint Natural and Working Lands proposal submitted by the Governor's Office on behalf of the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Department of Agriculture, OWEB, and Oregon Department of Forestry, with the following modifications. So two, and I think this kind of reflects what we heard, just for clarity. One, OWEB should be given the flexibility to adjust allocations between their open solicitation grants and the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program to allocate additional funding to the OAHP, depending on the demand and the agency's capacity. So that would be one modification. The second one, to your point, just to clarify, so there's consistency, that conservation easements and covenants shall be excluded from the OWEB's use of the National Working Lands Funds for the OAHP during the 23 through 25 biennium.
Anything else relative to the motion on reporting? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Put some words in my mouth.
I think I would love to see some inclusion of requests for regular updates and requests for any significant changes in the allocation of funds.
Yeah, so yeah, item 3 would, I could add that would include, and so when we talk regular updates, do we want to define that at all? I mean, I really appreciate Debbie's comments about, right, coming back to the commission as things develop, right? So it would be helpful to know how things are evolving during the biennium rather than kind of waiting to the end for a report. So I guess we could add item 3, which should be ongoing communication and updates to the commission. You know, as the program is being implemented would be really helpful. Does that capture it, Kathy, or is there something else we want to add to that?
I think that captures it for me. Maybe I'll just ask Debbie if you want to reflect on that and how that would work for the agencies, if you think that's appropriate, or if there are any comments you want us to consider.
I think that gives us pretty clear direction and is consistent with what we hope to do with all of you, is to be in front of you on a recurring basis to help you understand kind of what's going well, what might not be going according to plan, and engaging in a conversation with you. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Great. Do I hear a second?
Yes, I second the motion, Commissioner Reitman.
Thank you, Commissioner Reitman. Open the floor for discussion or any discussion or questions about the proposal. Okay. Hearing none, and if I missing a hand up, let me know, but it looks like I don't see any hands up. Then I'll go ahead and do a roll call to see who supports or does not support the motion as described by Commissioner Ford and amended by myself, with the 3 changes to the proposed spending plan, or 2 changes to the proposed spending plan, and 1 statement of intent and hope that the agencies and the governor's office will communicate regularly with the commission and request any proposals for significant changes. So with that, Commissioner Apter, how do you vote?
Vote to approve.
Excellent. You proposed it, Commissioner Ford, but just to be clear.
I support my motion.
Excellent, good. Commissioner Ross?
Approved and supported.
Excellent. Commissioner Shippentauer?
I support the motion.
And also Commissioner Reitman, you seconded it, but just to be official, you support
Yes, I approve.
And Commissioner Sharon? Just looking to see. Commissioner Sharon? Perhaps Commissioner Sharon had to step off. Just looking. Amy, can you Has there been any communications with Commissioner Sheeran?
No, I have not seen any communications with Commissioner Sheeran.
Okay. I believe that we need Commissioner Sheeran's vote to meet quorum. Or maybe Amy or someone else can answer this question. If Commissioner Sheeran was on at the beginning of the meeting, does that give us quorum and allow us to vote?
It gives you quorum, but I'm not sure that you have the requisite number of votes. If it's based off of the entire number of voting commissioners, but I will look into that for you.
I believe if you need a quorum in order to take action. So opening the meeting is not necessarily an action, but a vote like this is action, which takes a quorum.
Okay, so we'll
endeavor to get hold of Commissioner Sheeran and we can maybe circle back to this and add her
That
vote.
sounds great.
She goes back on.
Yeah, we'll hold the votes that we've got, and if you can see if she can come back and join us so we can have a quorum for voting, that'd be great. We haven't faced this before, so thank you. Great. Well, I'm really excited. I want to echo Representative Helm's point that this has been a long time in coming, and it's an exciting to see the state step forward and specifically recognize the important role of natural and working lands and the importance of helping landowners, land managers, tribes, and communities adopt practices that will help us improve the resilience and the mitigation potential benefits from our natural and working lands. So thank you, and thanks again to the governor's office and the agencies for providing such a great job on developing this proposal.
Chair McDonald, I'll stay on the line while you are kind of finalizing the vote, but I just thank you all. This has been a really great experience working with all of you on this. I just appreciate the partnership, the collaboration, the trust, and we just want to keep it going. So thank you.
Great. Any other comments before we move on to the next topic, recognizing that we'll come back once we know where we stand with Commissioner Sheeran. Okay, great. Well, let's move on to our next topic, and we can turn it over to Colin McConaughey from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Or, oh, I think we're supposed to be taking a break right now.
Yes.
Let's take a break first, and then we'll tee up the next agenda item. Thank you.
Yes.
And I think we have time for a 10-minute break.
I believe your break was scheduled to run until 11:50.
We could do that and take a longer break.
We don't need that
so-
much time, do we? 10 minutes is great.
Or not, or is DEQ ready to present if we came back a little early?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well then let's come back at 11:45. Excellent, thanks. Commissioners, if you can go on video for a few minutes just to let us know that you're back, then we can get going on the next agenda item. That I will reconvene the January 26th meeting of the Oregon Climate Action Commission and ask Amy to go to the next slide, and we can invite Colin McConaughey and his colleagues up to give us a reminder of the importance of the Priority Climate Action Plan and give us an update on some of the public comments that they've been receiving on the plan. So welcome, Colin. Colin, are you kicking this off, or Morgan, are you going to be leading off on the conversation?
Let me just check real quick. We might be having some technical.
Well, welcome to you and to Whitney as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here today. Let me see where Colin is, and if not, happy to move it forward. 1 minute.
Chair McDonald, this is Janine at Odo. Can I just take a moment while we are finding Colin, and just as something I forgot to say at the beginning that I was kicking myself for. So if you'll allow me, and I think it's an important thing to mention in the context of the next agenda item. Alan mentioned that Zach Baker, who was the senior climate analyst at Odo supporting the Global Warming Commission, has moved on, and I just wanted to add my thanks and appreciation for the work that he did. We miss him terribly. We're really happy that Amy has stepped up and is taking on this role. So I neglected to say that at the beginning, and I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to publicly thank Zach and appreciate all of the work that he put into this commission and his work at Odo, and the partnership he had with DEQ on this next agenda item. So thanks for letting me do that.
Thank you, Director Benner. And I had meant to do that as well. It was such a pleasure to work with Zach in his tenure. He did a really great job, and we had a pretty heavy workload during his period of time. So I really appreciate all the great work he did. And I want to just note that Director Strickler is with us, as well as State Forester Mukomoto. Thank you.
I see that Colin is back on, so I think he's ready to kick us off here. Thank you for the
excellent. Welcome, Colin.
Good morning. Apologies for that. I cannot seem to get WebEx settings right the first time around, so this is consistent for me. So apologies for that delay, and love the fact that it appeared to spur some appreciation for Zach Baker. I just echo that. Really appreciated working with Zach over the years. I'll dive in if that's okay, Chair, or is there any introduction you wanted for this agenda item?
I did a quick introduction of wanting to have you give us just a brief reminder of the importance of this climate action plan, and kind of an update or overview of some of the comments that that DEQ has been receiving that on this draft priority climate action plan.
Wonderful. Okay, so I will dive in. Chair McDonald and commissioners, thanks for having us join you today to provide an update on Oregon's climate pollution reduction grant planning efforts, and specifically that priority climate action plan that Chair McDonald mentioned. This is a plan that's due to EPA March 1st, so just barely over a month from now. We recently presented to you on our approach for developing this priority climate action plan. And we're back here today to provide additional updates now that we have released a full draft of that priority climate action plan and have begun receiving input from the public and local governments and many other interested stakeholders. I'll give a reminder from last time that we presented. The priority climate action plan is focused on identifying actions for federal fund that can receive federal funding that can be used then to produce near term within the next 3 to 5 years. So in climate planning timeframes, very, very near term greenhouse gas reductions. Given that timeframe and the focus of EPA on using these funds to maximize those near term greenhouse gas reductions, not all climate mitigation possibilities can or really should be included in priority climate action plans based on, again, EPA's parameters that they've set what they want to see in these plans. But I will say that items that are not included in priority climate action plans from states and tribes and metropolitan statistical areas that are developing these, those additional mitigation measures can be included in subsequent planning documents that we'll be filing with EPA. These are called comprehensive climate action plans. And Oregon will be developing our comprehensive climate action plan later this year and next year. And I'm sure we'll be in front of this commission probably several times to discuss that longer term and more comprehensive planning effort. As a recap from when we met last, I'll remind the commission that what goes into states' priority climate action plans, the greenhouse gas mitigation measures that we identify and document in these priority climate action plans, those then define the mitigation measures that will be eligible to compete for the second effort that EPA is conducting under the climate pollution reduction grant process, which is to award competitive grants to implement those measures. EPA has more than $4 billion nationally to fund via competitive grants implementation of greenhouse gas mitigation measures identified in priority climate action plans that states file with them. I'll say that our priority climate action plan is really the tip of the iceberg when it comes to addressing greenhouse gas reductions for Oregon. And this plan does not by any means represent all that is needed and necessary in Oregon to address our climate needs. However, if Oregon is fortunate enough to receive funds for the measures included in our priority climate action plan, that will, I believe, amplify near-term horizon, near-term reductions and lead the way to meeting our state's climate goals. Love to get into more info, but that is why we have Morgan Schaefer here. So I'm going to hand it over to her to share the new information that we have on our priority climate action plan and what we're hearing, again, via that input from the public and stakeholders that we're already receiving. So if we could go to the next slide, and Morgan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair McDonald, Commissioners. As Colin mentioned, my name is Morgan Schaefer, and I'm the Climate Pollution Investments Coordinator at DEQ. Thank you for having us again. And I'm going to just review a little bit just about the grant and the Priority Climate Action Plan, just so we all are reminded where we're at with this process. So the state's Priority Climate Action Plan, or what we call the PCAP, as Colin said, will be a compilation of near-term 3 to 5 year implementation ready priority greenhouse gas reduction measures. Oregon is well positioned for this work, having already created extensive inventories and future planning, including the Commission's work on the roadmap to 2030. The development of the PCAP has been on a very short time scale, so we're utilizing all that past information as well as other efforts to inform this plan. We're also working with other state agencies, tribes, and local jurisdictions to get input to shape the draft that you have already seen. To align goals and avoid duplication, we're also working with Metro, who is leading the PCAP for the local MSA, so that we understand how we're supporting and leveraging both of those plans together. Our goal is to submit a single state-led grant application that mirrors the PCAP. So Colin was talking about how the grant can really only include the measures that are included in that PCAP, and there's a month in between when the PCAP is due and that application is due. So it should very much mirror exactly what goes into our PCAP. This approach is in alignment with EPA's guidance and makes the state more competitive for the limited amount of grant awards that will include state and local, will include local and statewide actions. This approach also reduces agencies from competing for the same funds and consolidates resource efforts if funded. Our intent is to utilize subaward and contract agreements. One second here. To fund those existing programs, right? So DEQ will be in lead for that application, and then if we're fortunate enough to be awarded, we will then use contract agreements to fund that work through ODO and other agencies as well. Slide, please. For the $4.3 billion EPA is anticipating to award in implementation grants, there will be only 32 to 115 awarded nationally for this competition. That's a very small amount of awards for this amount of dollars. So with that in mind, we're focusing all of the measures that are included in this draft to also be those that meet that criteria and keep our state competitive for those funds. So this slide represents EPA's scoring criteria for applications, and it's very much guiding our decisions as to what we prioritize in our plan. That includes maximizing cost per GHG reduction, having a positive impact to our low income and disadvantaged communities, having quantifiable and scalable measures. And it also is that measurable outcomes on that 3 to 5 year horizon is really important to the EPA. And so that's very much driving the measures that we're including. So that means that the measures and the programs that are associated with them must have existing capacity and readiness. Our team is continuing to assess even since the draft came out to refine that draft to ensure that measures included meet the needs for both the PCAP and that grant application, which really means that the draft that you all have seen is evolving and likely to actually be even more narrow in focus so that we make sure that we can implement these funds in a timely fashion and again, stay competitive on the greenhouse gas reductions. Slide. Oregon is fortunate enough, as I mentioned already, to have inventories, both a consumption-based and a sector-based inventory that allows us to approach all of this work across the whole system. And we're really looking forward to adding to those inventories through the Commission's work for the Oregon's Natural Working Lands Carbon Sequestration Inventory, which is part of our CCAP. And that'll create an even more comprehensive picture for Oregon to understand how to address greenhouse gases. The approach that we used to develop this PCAP includes all of those inventories, the roadmap, and of course the associated Transformational Integrated Greenhouse Gas Emissions Reduction Project report, or as we call it, the TIGR. Informed by all of this, as well as that work with other state agencies and tribes and local jurisdictions, what we have found are the areas, the sectors that are that will lead to the most benefit and are most ready are transportation, commercial and residential buildings, waste and materials management. So we addressed these already, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the measures that support all of this within the draft. Slide. So up first is transportation. Not only is transportation the largest contributing sector in Oregon to greenhouse gases, it is also the one that touches almost everyone's lives. Whether taking a bus, driving a car, getting packages, transportation is involved. I had a delivery this morning that was delayed actually from our ice storm, so I know what that's like. By including transportation in this PCAP and applying for funds to address greenhouse gas reductions, as well as it will address those major greenhouse gas reductions, just to be clear, like this funding this is our largest contributor. So by including these measures, we're really going to more quickly address the greenhouse gases coming from transportation. And in addition to addressing transportation, we get other air quality as well as environmental justice benefits. Oregon already has an EV rebate program for cars. However, there are more people who want a rebate than there are funds to provide rebates, to the point that the program can only run for part of the year. This measure in the PCAP is to expand those rebates for EV cars, and it's focused on supporting low income and moderate income households. And it also is for both new and used EV cars. Another measure addresses medium and heavy duty vehicles. Examples of these vehicles include school buses, transit buses, garbage trucks, and delivery trucks. Oregon has an existing grant program, is creating a rebate program for medium heavy duty vehicles. The current program has millions of dollars of applications every year that do not get awarded due to available funds. This measure would expand funding to support purchasing medium heavy duty electric vehicles, which also reduces diesel exhaust. These programs will prioritize vehicles that drive in areas with vulnerable populations, such as where there are children, minority populations, and lower income areas. The potential recipients include fleets, school districts, local governments, tribes, and companies. We're also including measures to support infrastructure for electric vehicles so that new electric vehicles are able to charge. Because it's great to have the vehicles on the road, but we also need to be able to support so that they can charge. Slide, please. Housing is a major concern in Oregon, and these measures are in support of the creation of sustainable, energy-efficient buildings, as well as efficiency gains for existing buildings. Again, there are existing programs to support the delivery of these measures. They have some funding, but those funds meet a small portion of the need. If we received funding, this measure would increase the energy efficiency of housing, create more sustainable and lower carbon footprint buildings. In addition, these measures can support Oregon residents by offering heat pumps and weatherization. Not only would there be greenhouse gas reductions, but there would also increase community resiliency, especially for extreme events. These measures include incentives to build more energy efficient houses, or incentives to the REACH code, incentives for heat pumps in new and existing houses, as I mentioned, and weatherization as the same, and incentives to early adoption for buildings of the building performance standards, resulting in additional nearer term greenhouse gas reductions. Next slide, please. Addressing waste is not something a lot of people think about, but it is a huge contributor to greenhouse gases in Oregon. It also needs a holistic approach, meaning one that addresses greenhouse gases from upstream to downstream. So from food waste to the greenhouse gases that result from the waste in landfills. Our measures aim to address food waste through the recovery efforts that prevent food waste from going to landfills and utilizing techniques such as composting and anaerobic digestion. Landfills remain one of the largest sources of methane emissions in our state. Methane has a high global warming potential, 28 times more than carbon dioxide. So we are also including a measure that allows for site-specific emission reductions. While we discussed buildings on the last slide, using materials that have low embodied carbon can make those new or renovated buildings have an even lower carbon footprint. So that's also included within our materials measures. That was a lot of information and a lot of measures to go through quite quickly. I just want to say that all of the measures that I just walked you through were selected to address the areas where greenhouse gases reductions are needed the most for our state, but they are also selected because they're scalable. They can deliver reductions in that short period of time, and they can benefit rural communities throughout our state. Slide, please. Just as a reminder, in addition to the state agencies and local jurisdictions, we've also engaged with interested tribes in Oregon to identify actions to include in the state's PCAP so that they can point to the state's PCAP to apply for implementation funds as they are also eligible applicants under this program. Not all tribes are developing a PCAP. However, the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians, ATNI, is also developing a plan that tribes within the region can point to in addition to the state's PCAP. Engagement with interested tribes in Oregon has guided actions for inclusion in tribal priorities, which you see reflected in the draft. And we continue to engage with those tribes to make sure that they are represented within our PCAP. Slide, please. A requirement for the PCAP is the analysis of low-income and disadvantaged communities that will be impacted by the measures. As defined by EPA for the purposes of the CPRG, low-income and disadvantaged communities are any community that is identified as disadvantaged by Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool, or CJEST. This tool uses data sets, indicators of burden in 8 categories: climate change, energy, health, housing, legacy pollution, transportation, water and wastewater, and workforce development. It's quite comprehensive. Over 20% of Oregon census tracts, so 233 out of 834, are considered disadvantaged. The map on this slide shows these communities and their location throughout Oregon. While it only represents 28% of tracts, you can see that by land mass, it actually represents a good portion of our state, which is something we really all need to be thinking about. Most of the measures included in the draft PCAP are considered statewide, but depending on the measure, they may impact some communities more than others, such as medium and heavy duty reductions or move to electric vehicles might impact urban areas, while heat pumps might be able to impact rural communities more. Slide, please. I just wanted to point out for everyone who isn't already familiar, but our draft Priority Climate Action Plan is available on our CPRG website. The web address is at the bottom, and it's about halfway down the page. And in addition, if you can change the slide, on that same page, we link to our feedback survey. One back, please. Oh, okay. Due to, I think that there's a slide in between those two. Yep, there we go. It's like ketchup. It's like, anyway, due to our very short timeline, we're accepting feedback through a survey so we can move more quickly and evaluate and incorporate that feedback. The survey is on the DEQ site, but it's also available at the link we're providing on this screen, and I'll put it in the chat as well. And then you can also use the QR code to take you there. So for the English-based survey, English language-based survey, that feedback is actually due today. And we would love your feedback, all of your feedback. It's really important, not just for our PCAP, but also framing our comprehensive climate plan and all of our climate programs. For the Spanish language survey, that is actually due February 7th. We wanted to give more time because that got up a little bit later due to some procurement on our end. So please provide our feedback. We're excited to get it. We've already received over 70 pieces of feedback. So feedback related to the draft must be submitted through the survey, just to emphasize that. And that's because we have to move so very quickly on our timeline. The feedback is anonymous, and it will be used to inform our final PCAP, as well as that comprehensive climate plan, like I mentioned. So slide, please. So while the feedback window hasn't quite closed, I did go in and have collected an example of what is being provided to us. So like I said, we already have over 70 comments. A lot of that is coming from the more densely populated counties. And then we have a lot of individuals that are commenting, which I think is fantastic. There's also some local government and private companies that have been commenting. So for transportation measure feedback, we're seeing a lot of calls for electrification of vehicles, improved public transportation, public charging, reducing miles in vehicles. So we usually call that vehicle miles traveled, and alternatives to vehicles. So there's a number of pushes towards more transit, but also to bicycles, etc. For building measures, we're seeing asks for additional weatherization, energy efficiency or alternative energy such as solar, clean energy homes and buildings, and improved codes, replacing gas appliances with electric, and that includes heat pumps and water heaters. Those were specifically called out there. For waste measures, we see methane capture for landfills and farm waste being asked to be prioritized. We also see food waste reduction, reducing plastic use, and using more sustainable materials and reducing environmental impact. The other themes that have really popped out for our team include additional education and outreach on all of this. Single points of information or hubs. Focus on low-income owners and renters. Use of cleaner fuels or cleaner energy sources, and local level changes, which is very important, especially when you look at where this feedback is coming from, understanding how these state measures can impact local level, but then also I think it's important for us to uplift those local level changes within our comprehensive climate action plan, which I hope to present to you soon. So that's just a taste of the feedback. We'll be including a summary of all of the feedback in our final PCAP. That rhymes, apologies. And the last day to provide comments for that English language survey is today. Please do so. And then for the Spanish language survey is February 7th. And we look forward to having all of that feedback and looking through it and seeing how to reflect that back into our PCAP. Next slide, please. So just in summary, we're excited to complete the development of this PCAP and with the lens towards creating a competitive climate-centered implementation grant. Our timeline and next steps, so the PCAP is due to EPA March 1st, and I didn't put that on the slide because I've mentioned it a number of times already, and then that grant application is due April 1st. For tribal grants, that's due May 1st. I just want to call out because there's a separate deadline for that. And then we'll continue to develop and work on the Oregon Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, which is due in the winter of 2025. So to stay connected to all of this work, there's a list that you can join on our website, and I'll also go ahead and throw in all of those links for the chat right now. But I just want to say thank you again for your time. These slides will be posted on our website when we're done here. And we just really appreciate having this platform today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Morgan. Any questions for DEQ about their proposal or the Priority Climate Action Plan? Any clarifications or comments? Commissioners can raise their hand if they want to provide comments. I just want to recognize what a short timeline you all had, the folks working on this, and those helping you indirectly. And it's great that Oregon had a lot of good information to be able to pull together to inform it, but I know that it was a lot of work, and it's been impressive to see how quickly you've moved through it and how comprehensively you've tried to be in getting input from interested parties. So thank you. Any questions or comments? Thanks, State Forester Moto, for the thumbs up.
Chair McDonald, I'll just echo that appreciation. I know this has been somewhat of a moving target, and as the commission has discussed for many months now, we're all so eager to see the state meet the moment on the federal funding opportunity, and this is a really, really key one. And just want to applaud the coordination across agencies, efforts to engage stakeholders and get input, coordination with Metro. So I know there have been countless hours across agency staff and leadership that has been dedicated to making this application as competitive as possible. And also appreciate, Morgan, your mention that it continues to, you continue to be responsive and adapting to input to continue to strengthen it in the final stage of the process. So thank you for that nimbleness as well.
Great, thank you. I think we are still short a quorum. I was going to ask for a motion, but I wonder if we should go ahead and take the next agenda item and then come back to both votes at the end. I think there might be some constraints on your ability to stay with us, but so if that's the case, we can maybe do exactly what we did with the natural and working lands, take a vote short of quorum, and we got word that Commissioner Sharon is planning to rejoin the meeting, but think she just must have gotten delayed a little bit longer than she planned. So
Chair McDonald,
yeah.
she's apparently logging on right now.
Ah, great. Okay. So maybe give her a minute or two and then. Can we'll do one more call for any clarifying questions or comments if people would like to make them. Oh, and maybe while we're waiting, one thing I wanted to raise with you, Colin, is I've been tracking the press reports and releases about the court's decision about the climate protection program, and saw the press release on Monday as part of that, and just wanted to see if you would mind giving us a little bit of context for that, and any comments you want to make on that process. It's certainly an important part of our climate action. So I just want to open the floor for you to give those that maybe missed the press releases and the news reports a bit of an overview of that process.
Yeah, certainly, Chair McDonald. This recent news release from DEQ is really, I'm going to at this point call it a culmination of over a year-long process. This is a challenge to the Environmental Quality Commission's adoption of the Climate Protection Program. This is a case that was brought by a number of industry. The case's title is Northwest Natural Gas Company versus the Environmental Quality Commission. It was brought by Northwest Natural, but also several other groups as well. That's just the title of that the court gave the case. And they challenged the EQC's adoption of the Climate Protection Program. That adoption occurred late in 2021, and the program was in effect beginning in 2022. The court invalidated EQC's adoption of the rules, not over the primary challenge to their authority. That's really important to note. The court did not rule on that matter, but rather on a pretty narrow technicality that we failed to issue a certain particular type of notice when we issued those rules, and as a consequence invalidated the program. So the Climate Protection Program is no longer in effect. What DEQ announced early this week was that we do not plan to appeal that decision, but rather, not because we agree with it, but rather as a matter of expedience to get a program readopted in its place. The appeals process would raise, we believe, more uncertainty and be more protracted than versus the agency pursuing a new rulemaking and renoticing of those rules. So we plan to start a rulemaking to readopt the program in place of the now invalidated Climate Protection Program early this year, quite soon, and with the intent of getting a new program in place more quickly than we believe a process of appeals would have produced. You probably can understand I can't really say a whole lot more than that, but if there are clarifying questions, Commissioner, from you or others on the commission, I can try to answer those.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions? Well, I just speaking personally, I really appreciate the approach the department is taking as the fastest way to move the program forward. You know, in the Oregon Climate Action Commission's analysis informing the roadmap we developed and approved in 2030. We recognized the importance of the climate protection program to meeting emissions reductions and our climate goals for Oregon. And in addition to that, we led our recommendations in the roadmap, focusing in on supporting robust and continuous implementation of those existing programs and regulations as passed. So certainly important for us to pay attention to how this goes. And again, speaking personally, I really support the approach that the department has decided to take. Any other comments or questions?
Chair McDonald, I just want to emphasize what you just shared, especially for folks who are new to the commission. The TIGR report and the roadmap to 2030, as you said, was framed the way it was because of ODO's analysis that found Oregon was on track to achieve our emissions reduction targets of 45% by 2035. And just underscore that the CPP, I believe, is responsible for nearly half of those projected emissions reductions by 2035. So it's absolutely essential to keeping us on track. And would also note, I know, communities across Oregon were really looking forward to the Community Climate Investment Program, getting that launched, and delivering meaningful investments in environmental justice in other communities across the state. So many important reasons why we're very eager and grateful to DEQ for their action and commitment to reinstating the program as quickly as possible. So thank you to you, Colin, and the team, and also appreciate Governor Kotek's commitment and support of program reinstatement as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Apter.
Chair McDonald, it appears that you have a few other commissioners with their hands raised.
Great.
So Commissioner Sheeran has her hand up.
Great. Thank you.
Chair McDonald, that was primarily just to let you know that I am available for the vote and for quorum. So
thank you. Welcome back. Amy, is there another hand up?
Yes, Commissioner Decker has her hand raised.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I had just kind of an in the weeds question about an element of the CPRG program, if this is an okay time for that. I noticed that part of the scoring is based on community benefits. And I wondered whether the team had already provided sort of a framework for what constitutes a community benefit and how to score that, or whether that's to be determined. That's certainly something that's coming up with implementation of House Bill 2021. And I just curious about any consistency across the different places that we're trying to evaluate this.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. So we are using the very quite narrow scope that is within the notice of funding opportunity for the grant to talk about how a community is defined. So that's part of the LIDAC slide that I showed. But in addition to that, we're looking at every single measure and the co-benefit that provides and specific to what communities will be impacted by each measure. And also trying to ensure that none of them will be negatively impacted by any of our measures. And so as we narrow a little bit in our final PCAP and that application, those co-benefits and those community impacts will be key to what stays in. Does that help? It's quite the
Can I,
step.
can I add to that?
Yeah.
Specific to transportation, which I understand, Commissioner Decker, that it may not be the piece of the measures you were most interested in, but I will say more for that, DEQ actually did a study and commissioned an analysis a couple years ago on the co-benefits of decarbonizing our transportation fuels, and that study was somewhat geographically granular, showing where decarbonizing transportation's fuels produces co-benefits, and it's where you would expect the I-5 corridor, communities adjacent to big shipping hubs. So we do have some Oregon specific data that we hope to be able to utilize to show EPA how some of those transportation measures in that additionally benefit communities, and which communities those are, and how those overlay with that LIDAC analysis. Again, understanding that's probably not the set of measures you were most focused on, but perhaps informative.
Oh, I just was curious, like at what level of kind of rigor and granularity you had determined your framework at this stage. So it's interesting to hear that you have some that are sort of specific to the sector. And you know, there's just a lot to that if you're going to do that for each different type of sector, I suppose, and geography. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate knowing where you're at.
Yeah, I would just say that the time frame EPA has put us in here by, this application has to be all in by April 1st, meaning we're really having to pull things off the shelf. And if it's not on the shelf, it's really probably not going to be feasible for us to produce before the application deadline.
Great. Thank you, Colin, and thank you, Commissioner Decker. And thanks to Morgan as well for the presentation. That was really helpful. If there are no other questions, I will ask for commissioners to propose a motion that we can consider in support of the great work that DEQ and ODO and many other agencies have done.
Thank you, Chair McDonald. I'd be pleased to propose a motion.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Apter.
Great. So with that, the Oregon Climate Action Commission supports the state and tribal priorities outlined in tables 3 and 4 in the draft Priority Climate Action Plan produced by the Oregon's Departments of Environmental Quality and Energy in January 2024. The Oregon Climate Action Commission recognizes that the PCAP may be modified as the departments finish analyzing public comments and coordinating with other agencies and the governor's office prior to submitting Oregon's Priority Climate Action Plan to the Environmental Protection Agency.
Excellent. Do I have a second?
I can second.
Sorry, I missed who seconded.
This is Commissioner Ross. I can second.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Ross. That I'll go to roll call. Again, I'm not sure that this is necessary, but I'll run through everyone. Commissioner Apter.
I support.
Commissioner Ford.
Support.
Commissioner Ross.
I support.
Commissioner Shippentauer.
I support.
Commissioner Reitman.
Support.
Commissioner Sheeran, welcome back. Commissioner Sheeran.
Support. Can you not, are you guys not hearing me?
We can hear you now. We just,
sorry.
and I support as well. So that's excellent. It is great work. It's great to see that all the work that we did last year and the year before in development of the analysis that went into the roadmap to 2030 has been useful. And it's great to think about the opportunity that the state has to secure funding to really advance the work and keep us on track to meet our emission goals and maybe exceed them. So thank you very much. And we appreciate the update. We'll be tracking your synthesis of the comments and may want to invite you back as you mentioned a couple of times as you start work on the more comprehensive plan and to hear hopefully great news on the funding that Oregon may receive from EPA. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair McDonald. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We are a little bit behind and we have two more agenda topics. I am wondering if both presenters can maybe tighten things up a little bit and present in about 10 to 12 minutes, or if there's some other approach we want to take to getting back on track.
Chair McDonald, before you move forward, would you like to revisit the motion from the previous action item?
Thank you, Amy. That's a great idea. So Commissioner Sharon, we took a vote on the natural and working lands motion. And that motion, which I believe you might not have been in the room for, I'll just go ahead and revisit it. It's the right place. That motion is that the Oregon Climate Action Commission approves the proposed investment plan as outlined in the 2024 Joint Natural and Working Lands proposal submitted by the Governor's Office on behalf of the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Department of Agriculture, Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and Oregon Department of Forestry with the following modifications. OWEB shall be given flexibility to adjust allocations between their open solicitation grants, and the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program, and in order to allocate additional funding to OAHP, depending on demand and the agency's capacity. And second modification is that easements and covenants, conservation easements and covenants shall be excluded from OWEB's use of the Natural and Working Lands Fund for the Oregon Agricultural Heritage Program during the 2023 to 2025 biennium. And then finally, that the Commission recognizes that there may be a need for other modifications to the spending plan and requests the agencies provide the Commission with periodic updates and requests for significant changes to the uses of the funds. So can we hear your vote on that?
You have my vote for support.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Sharon. So back to how we can.
Chair McDonald?
Yes.
If I might, I just wanted to comment on the issue of the quorum for folks that are listening in, especially the attendees, that as of January 1st, the Commission actually expanded its voting membership to 13, which changed our quorum requirement to 7. And with so many vacancies, it's sometimes difficult to actually get a quorum of 7 since we only have 8 or 9 current members. So thank you very much to all the Commission members that have shown up for this meeting, because your presence is essential for a quorum and for us to move forward with action.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that. It's a really important point, and also an important point for us trying to get those positions filled as quickly as possible. I would love to hear from both presenters, but am very mindful of the time. I think we can take a little time from next steps because I think they're pretty short. Maybe Erica, I had a chance to preview your slide deck. If you could perhaps focus in primarily on any new information that might inform goals that the state should be setting and considerations the state should be making on our climate action, and maybe either run through some of the other slides a little more quickly, or if you prefer, just give us an overview of those thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, can you hear me all right?
We can. Thank you
Great.
and welcome, Erica.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will I will try not to talk super quickly, but I will try to be concise. So I was asked to provide somewhat of an overview on some of the outcomes or major messages of the COP28 and also of the 5th National Climate Assessment. And so if you would go to the first slide, and thank you for running the slides. What the IPCC has said, and I know that this is familiar territory for pretty much everyone here, is that in essence, it is going to be quite difficult to limit warming globally to 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, given the speed and magnitude with which reductions would need to be made. So next slide, please. The COP28, which is also the 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference, or formerly the Conference of the Parties of the United, anyway, long titles. We'll just go with the shorter ones. There were a couple of kind of high-level outcomes from that conference. There is a new aim of net zero carbon dioxide emissions by 2050. What many fairly knowledgeable commentators have regarded as a commitment to a just, orderly, and equitable transition away from fossil fuels. There was a commitment to provide funds for a pretty substantial reduction of methane emissions before the end of the decade. This is relevant in part because methane retains about 30 times more heat than carbon dioxide over 100 years and has an atmospheric lifetime of about 12 years, which is much shorter than carbon dioxide. So although methane is not basically by volume the major contributor to emissions, a rapid reduction and a large reduction in methane can have some pretty substantial effects over the short term. And again, we're 1.5 is not looking all that feasible, unfortunately. Next, please. So the National Climate Assessments, the 5th National Climate Assessment just came out. The National Climate Assessments are mandated by Congress. They come out roughly every 4 years. They deal with the physical science of climate change. They deal with topics that are nationally relevant, such as agriculture, forestry, many others, and they also summarize information by regions. One of the very strong points of the National Climate Assessments is they have an extensive, some of us that were authors would say almost too extensive, review process from the public, from the National Academy of Sciences, from peer reviewers, what have you. So what finally comes out in the National Climate Assessments is extremely thoroughly reviewed and considered highly credible. Next, please. The United States is warming more than the global average, and the Western United States is warming especially rapidly. I'm pulling a little bit of information here from the Oregon Climate Assessment. This again is familiar ground, so I won't belabor it. Summers are getting, all seasons are getting warmer, and summers in terms of relative magnitude are getting warmer than other seasons. Next, please. We also are aware that, that the effects of climate change, both the physical effects and also the social, economic, cultural effects, are not equitable. So there are many areas in urban areas and many other areas where populations that are already disadvantaged in various ways are suffering, again, the physical and the social brunt of some of these changes more than other populations. Next, please. The National Climate Assessment indicated that there will be, that it's pretty much inevitable that temperatures globally will continue to increase by more than 1 degree Fahrenheit compared to recent decades by 2100. What I wanted to flag in the National Assessment, it gets not quite confusing. Everything is well documented, but there's a lot of combinations of degrees Celsius and degrees Fahrenheit. There are different periods used as the baseline period and different periods used as the projection period. So if you're looking through the National Climate Assessment and you're going through it quickly, pay close attention to the baselines, because otherwise you'll be comparing apples and oranges. So in these slides, I tried to reference what the baseline is and what the measurement system is. So this is just a way of visualizing what does 1.5 look like in terms of averages across the year. at the national level. And obviously you can see what's going on in Oregon. And so we know that averages are not the only thing going on. If you move to the next slide, this is from the National Climate Assessment and deals with number of days, projected increase in number of days compared to last century, with relatively high temperatures during the day. And oh crap, we are having a fire drill. Well, I'm going to be very quick. I need to evacuate my building. I am terribly sorry. You might want to just flip to the precipitation slide and take a look at that. I'm so sorry, I gotta go.
Chair McDonald, you're on mute.
Thank you, Commissioner Apter. Just wanted to tell her we support her getting out of the building. And we will post, I think we either have or will post this, and might want to go ahead and flip through the a couple of these slides and see what she might have at the end. But let people just kind of so a really important thing for us to dig back into. I just wanted to emphasize the point that Erica made about really being clear about the different assumptions and reporting relative to Fahrenheit or Celsius, and then what the baseline year was. And in developing the Commission's proposal for new climate goals, greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, and net emission reduction goals. We did, I think, staff did a really good job of being clear about all of that and helping us interpret what that would mean in terms of meaningful goals for Oregon relative to the goals that we have. So I think we can follow up with that and pull together some information that will help us translate that information from the National Climate Assessment into our thinking as we go forward in terms of what we should be thinking about as goals for Oregon. So I think we probably need to move on. Unless other commissioners want to make a comment on the goals or the information we just heard. I'm not seeing any hands up. So with that, if we can go ahead and move on to Christy Splitt. Apologies that you have a shortened time, but again, you can kind of eat into the next steps time just a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah, I thought I was supposed to start 3 minutes ago, so I'm feeling right on time. So I guess it all worked out for me. It's nice to see everyone. I'm Christy Splitt. I'm the Government Relations Coordinator at the Oregon Department of Energy. I'm hoping that my legislative people that are on the commission can be paying some close attention, because I'm hoping for a little bit of group chatter here to the extent possible. So before I flip to the next slide, just as a reminder, Oregon's legislature meets every 2 years, and in even numbered years, it's a short and very often pretty challenging short legislative session where things are moving really, really fast. And everyone always says it's just going to be little things, and it, of course, always turns into lots of other things that are unexpected or really big projects, big lifts. So I'm sure this year will be no different. The legislative session kicks off on February 5th and has to wrap up by March 10th. I wanted to come today and share first a little information about a bill that we as an agency submitted via committee bill with the Senate Energy and Environment Committee, and then just talk about kind of what topics I expect to come up this session in legislation. And that's where I'm hoping that other people can share maybe what I'm missing, or feel free to elaborate on that list of topics where you might be the more appropriate person to talk about it than I am if there's questions or anything that comes up. So in the interest of making this snappy, we can go to the next slide. And we have, like I mentioned, we have our own bill that we're putting in, and it's essentially a combination of some technical fixes to recent legislation with potentially some more substantive pieces to it as well. First of all, one is very relevant to this particular group, which is, and may have already been talked about today, in fact, probably was. I'm sorry, I take some time off on Friday, so I couldn't be at the whole meeting today. But the natural and working lands reports, we just don't think that we can meet the deadlines in the statute due to getting staffing hired and how long it takes to do contracting. We don't want to, produce a product that's below the standards that you all expect from the Department of Energy and what people also expect from the Climate Action Commission. And so we're leaving in place the deadlines for the reports related to the Natural and Working Lands Fund that I'm sure you spent lots of time on earlier today. But we will extend the deadlines for what I'm kind of calling the studies. Those deadlines will all be extended by a year. They're all a little bit different, but essentially kind of fall right at the end of this year, and one falls, I think, January 1st of next year, something like that. So we'll roll all of those over for a year and have all those studies to you all, or you'll be looking at them much sooner than that, but they'll be released and final about a year later. So in the fall, early winter of next year, 2025, into that January 1st, 2026, I suppose. So does anyone have questions on that? Did you all talk about it already and everybody's okay?
Well, it was just covered very briefly.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions on that, feel free to ask. I'll look for raised hands. I'll keep going unless I see anything. So that's one piece of this package. You may know, or I think you've been briefed on the energy security plan that is currently being developed by our Nuclear Safety and Emergency Preparedness Division. And there's both federal direction to complete this report and state direction. At the time the state direction was provided, we kind of took a guess at when we thought the federal money would come to fund that particular process, and a deadline that made sense with that in mind. The federal funds were significantly longer to arrive than we expected. And then the deadline for the federal report is later than the deadline in state law. So we just want the state law deadline to match the federal deadline, which would move it to September 30th instead of June of this year. And then we also have a modest change to the Community Renewable Energy Grant Program. This is a program that's funded, I think, 59 projects in 25 counties over the last 2 years. And those projects are either small-scale renewable energy projects or small-scale renewable energy projects with a resilience benefit to the community. And we prioritize both those resilience projects and environmental justice communities under this program. We're pretty proud of it. We think it's a really great program. But we kind of found a little glitch as we've been starting to have projects get underway. We realized that while our intention was that applicants, they're public bodies or tribes or consumer-owned utilities, we're often partnering with, say, a developer or a nonprofit. The developer or nonprofit was funding the project, and then the idea is at the end of the projects, when the project's done, we pay out the grant to the applicant, and then the applicant can pass through that money to whoever's been paying the bills for the project. We don't have a problem with that happening, but the statute doesn't allow for that to happen. So just a tweak to make that fit what we expected and what we thought would work. So that's what's in the base bill, Senate Bill 1525. I also just want to quickly flag that we'll almost certainly be adding an amendment to deal with our community heat pump deployment program. This program requires that the funds go to a regional administrator who then administers the program and pays for heat pump installations in those regions. We have some regions and some tribes that are unserved. And actually, there's a deadline today, but I imagine we'll have, I think, a region at least and some tribes that are unserved. And so we want to take the funds that are in that account and transfer them to our rental home heat pump program, and then have them earmarked for those unserved regions so that we can get those monies out the door ourselves versus having them just sit on a shelf and never get spent in order to pay for what can be life-saving technology for folks in certain areas of the state that would otherwise not have access. So I also just put in here, there's a likelihood that there could also be some additional changes to the Community Renewable Energy Grant Program. We're working on those. We've been hearing about them from others and seeing what will come of those, but just wanted to flag that for those interested in that program and more to come. Any questions on our technical fix bill? Just full disclosure there. I mostly meant to just make sure you knew about the piece that you all care about most, that first bullet, but wanted to make sure. It's always a chance to give transparency to what we're doing when I get to talk to you all. We can go on to the next slide then.
Christy?
Oh, I do see a hand. Yeah, go ahead. We can go to the next slide and talk about it, if that works. Talk about whatever Senator Dunbar wants to talk about.
This is Senator Brock Smith.
Oh, Brock Smith, I'm sorry. I just saw Senator D and made an assumption.
Oh, no problem. I know that when you presented the Coastal Caucus last month, or earlier this month, I can't remember.
Yeah.
You spoke about part of my district not being within the program. I've had some initial conversations.
Oh, good.
And so I understand that you just said the deadline is today, but I'm hoping that we can still find an active partner. And so I'd love to talk with you offline. I've been meaning to reach out, but just been buried.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I think we might have an application in for your region. So I'll find more out by the end of today, but I'll reach out to you offline.
Yeah, can you shoot me an email and that'd be great.
Absolutely. Good to hear from you. So moving us on, other topics we expect in 2024. I know you've all been reading along, and this is where I was hoping if there's people that, they're running these particular pieces of legislation themselves might raise their hand and speak up if they know more about them. We know that the governor has a really clear top priority around housing production, and that does include an incentive for climate-friendly new homes. We know there's been a big work group and lots of conversation around a bill that would allow Energy Facility Siting Council jurisdiction for standalone battery storage. We know that there's a bill out there that would, on federal land where there's NEPA review, National Environmental Protection Act review, that would say that's the review there, and FSEC would not also review on those projects. There's a concept around standby generators and energy reliability. I believe this is one I hear about from Kathy most of all. There's a forest lands workforce study bill that might be floating around. There's a clean energy manufacturing concept, a floating offshore wind roadmap and labor standards for floating offshore wind projects. I don't know if Senator Dunbar is on the line today or not, but greenhouse gas emissions goals are also something that was started out in the Oregon Climate Action Commission bill last session and came out kind of at the last minute. And my understanding is he's working to bring those back. And then that'd be pretty darn relevant to this group. So stay tuned on that. And then finally, one I've just kind of heard about in the ether a little bit, but there's a bill that it sounds like would require reports by utilities on their progress toward forming or joining a regional transmission organization. And with that, I just want, if there's other commission members that know about other concepts they want to share in this space or want to talk any more about anything I mentioned, now's the time. And otherwise, I'm happy to hand things over and let you move on.
Just a very quick mention. I've been in touch with Senator Dembro and the folks that are interested in advancing the forest land workforce study to look at ways that we can make those two workforce studies, the one that's authorized out of House Bill 3409 and the interests that's more specific to forest lands work together and complement one another. So that dialogue is started and ongoing. And from what I've seen, that bill could really add some depth and value to the workforce study that we're doing and vice versa. Other commission members want to weigh in with other concepts that are being considered? I don't see any hands up. Amy, do you? Okay.
Don't either. Great.
No, I don't see any other hands up at this time.
Here's hoping it means that it's a nice, quiet legislative session and there's no surprises. All right.
You're such a dreamer. Thank you.
Thanks for having me today.
You bet. Thank you. Moving to next steps, just want to reinforce that we are continuing to look for new commissioners, and Director Benner dropped the link to the place where you can go and apply if you're interested in being considered for an appointment. I think she dropped the link at about 12:04 in the chat, so you can find your way back to that and click on that link. We will be doing an orientation for new members as one or more as folks on board. As Amy shared, we are looking at setting up regular meetings so that folks can get them on their calendar well in advance for the rest of the 2024, if not longer. So those are all things, and then certainly, as Alan mentioned, really focusing in on hiring the new positions and Zach's replacement. So we are fully up to speed and from a capacity standpoint, and taking advantage of that added capacity that the legislature granted us in 2023. So those are the next steps that I have. Amy, anything important that I missed? Maybe some follow-up actions with Erica on and on how we should best interpret the new information that she was trying to present, and some one-on-one intersection between Senator Brock Smith and Christie about a program that be relevant to his region. Anything else?
Not that I can think of at this time. We will be reaching out with more information about scheduling those meetings, and for the new commissioners that are interested in having a new member orientation, we will also be reaching out to you if you have contacted us about that. And if not, and you are interested in having an orientation, please let us know.
And just the last thing, as we adjust to a new and larger commission, well, every time we meet, we usually do a quick after meeting reflection on what went well and what we could do to improve these meetings. I felt that it was pretty challenging to do some of the roll call and think about all the folks that were on and new, and I'm looking forward to getting to know people better. So that's a little more seamless process. That's one of my reflections. But if other commissioners have reflections on any ways we can make this more efficient and effective, please don't hesitate to bring them up to Amy and myself, and we'll explore those with you so that we can make this a great experience and really have an important impact on climate action in Oregon. Thank you all.
Chair McDonald?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Ford has his hand raised.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Ford.
Yeah, no, thanks for those comments, Kathy. I guess my only suggestion, and we've talked about this in the past, particularly with a number of new commissioners, I think it's super efficient to use WebEx as a vehicle to conduct a lot of business. I would urge us to schedule a face-to-face meeting at some time, particularly early in the tenure of some of these new members, to get to know each other a little bit. So when we are interacting here on screen, there's a better connection. So that would just be my only request.
Thank you, Commissioner Ford. That was the one note I made to myself that I forgot to say, which is, we'll either look to March or an April meeting to really to do a combination of in-person and virtual. We have had much more engagement from the public in the virtual meetings, so there definitely are benefits of having virtual meetings, but at the same time, having some face-to-face opportunity for commissioners to help us just strengthen those ties, I think is really important as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Excellent. Thank you all, and thanks to the members of the public that participated in the meeting, listened in, It's really gratifying to see how many people are paying attention to the work that we're doing and helping us do as much climate action as possible in the state of Oregon and educate Oregonians about that work. So thank you all. With that, I will close the January 26th meeting of the Oregon Climate Action Commission. And again, thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you.